power, whether red or blue. I could not care less about Texas, me and you. They created this give me country that don't value hard work. For a Texan to survive, all we need are some seeds and dirt. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before it's long gone. We believe in family and we value our community. Gladly lend a helping hand to a neighbor in need. And we don't believe that government should provide for all of society's needs. No, it's the pride of a Texan to give to others voluntarily. Texan arise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country before it's long gone. Texan arise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country before it's long gone. Our tax dollars and they love our natural resources. They don't want to see us driving trucks, they'd rather see us riding horses. And now they want to ban our guns, you know, especially the ones that look scary. But may I remind you of the Gonzales Cannon and the Alamo heroes we buried. Texan arise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country before it's long gone. Texan arise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country before it's long gone. This last verse is straight from the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 1 and 2. Look it up. Texas is an independent state, yet presently we suffer. We no longer possess the right to locally self-govern. And now it's time as a people in which all political power is inherent. And in such manner we find expedient, we reform or abolish our government. I said, Texan arise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before it's long gone. Texan arise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before it's long gone.
Well, good evening, fellow Texians. It's that time of the week where I take a break from what I'm doing and decompress a bit, take your questions, and it's on the right day. I mean, there was no slide of the schedule. Didn't have to do it a day later. Although I am going to say that I did enjoy a bit doing it on a Thursday. Got to see people that I would otherwise not see. A lot of fun. All right. Wow, there is a whole lot to unpack tonight. We're gonna dive right into it if you don't mind. And by the way, Kara is is running production remotely. So, if we have a little pause here and there, or whatever, that's just the way it works. She's she's out there doing what Texians do, and she is helping to take care of one of our own. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. Anyway, let me get this thing started. Welcome to Late Night Coffee Talk. For those of you joining us for the first time, I am Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and this is that time of the week where I take a break, pour another cup of coffee, and visit with you, right? Talk about what's going on with TEXIT, the TNM, in the world in general, and answer your questions, right? I make myself available pretty much every single solitary week for your questions, no matter what they are. Even if I have to refer you off to something we've answered a million times, I do that, right? But I answer your questions, whatever you want to know. And we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. But I can imagine that tonight, many of you are going to want to talk about the Texit bill. And we'll get to that here in a moment. For those of you joining us on YouTube, if you're watching on either of the YouTube channels, please feel free to drop your comments and questions in chat. Super chat is active. But just remember, if you drop a super chat there, Google takes a chunk, right? So if you want to make a contribution, head over to tnm.me/donate. That way, only the credit card companies can get that slice, right? They do take a healthy chunk. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting. I got asked today on our mobile app about why we don't do, have the store over there, or you can manage your membership or make contributions or any of that. And that's because Google and Apple want to take upwards of almost 40% of every dollar that comes through there. And that's just not feasible for us. So, I know it's inconvenient, but it's not our fault. It's just kind of the way it works. So hopefully that clears that up. By the way, if you're watching on Facebook, be sure to like and share and comment and drop your questions in the comments there. And I forgot to say that on YouTube, right? Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. There we go. Golly, man. I feel a bit rusty on that one. I don't know why. We've been doing the YouTube thing forever and a day. All right. Moving right along. If you're watching on Twitter, hey, on Twitter, I don't see your chats or your comments or anything, but do give us a like and a retweet if you don't mind. We sure do appreciate that. And always use hashtag TEXIT when you get an opportunity. Tonight is going to be a bit of a doozy, right? It's going to be a little bit of school, and it's going to be, well, I think tonight will be quite instructive, right? So I'm going to encourage you guys to kind of make a note of this one. We don't have enough time for a quote unquote school or workshop tonight, but I'm going to hit a couple of things that are going to be, I think, super helpful for a lot of folks. There are those of you out there that have got some experience in dealing with the Texas legislature. And then there are some of you, this is your first trip down the legislative path, and it can get a little daunting at some points. It can get a little twisty and turny. But really and truly, what we're going to cover tonight is going to be a couple of things that I think are super important, primarily about testifying on the TEXIT bill when it comes up for a hearing in the State Affairs Committee. Additionally, there was a Supreme Court decision, a Texas Supreme Court decision that came out just like on the 17th, like 5 days ago. And it has a remarkable bearing on a TEXIT vote. And while most people are not connecting those two dots, I'm going to do that for you tonight. And then hopefully we'll get to the point where I can talk about, brag on y'all a little bit, right? And what you've been able to do in shifting this window, this narrative, and basically how you've held no quarter for the opposition and their misinformation, and how it's made a huge difference. Before I get started on talking about the testimony or any of those sorts of things, really two things. Number one, I want to thank our good friends over there in Huntsville. Kara and I made the journey over there. Wow, was that Monday? Wow. Okay, Monday. We made the journey over there Monday and spoke to a whole passel of people there in Huntsville. The meeting was set up by the local group there in Huntsville, our local coordinator, deputy local coordinator, the volunteers, phenomenal people. Wish I could show you the gift basket they sent us. It was just a phenomenal opportunity. First class operation. They did a phenomenal job, and just a big thank you to Mitch and to Brooke and everyone over there who made us feel special, created a great environment for people. And I will say this, it was a speech probably that not, completely unlike any that I've given in a very long time. Much like tonight, I think it was quite instructive. But anyway, they can tell you about that. I don't like to talk about all the things that I do, but you had to be there and talk to people that were there, and I think they walked away feeling like it was something special as well. And I really hope so. I really hope that as we're traveling around and we're talking to these groups of people, some are already in the organization, some are checking it out for the first time and just now becoming acquainted with it. I really hope that we're able to encourage those people that are already working with us, spur them to further action, to embolden them. And for those people that are checking us out for the first time, I hope we're making a great first impression and giving them something that has been really lacking in any other policy discussion that's out there. And that's really hope that we can actually make a difference. And we do that by becoming a self-governing independent nation. So kudos to the guys in Huntsville. Thank you so much. And then many of you have been keeping up with, if you've seen any of the times when I've been speaking over the last couple of years, you have seen my main man, Dan Armour there. The joke is he's head of our our protective detail, right? I mean, that's what he does, is he handles kind of security for the organization. But the joke is always with him standing back there all stern and such. They're like, hey, is he is he there to protect you? And it's like, no, he's there to protect people from me, because if people do foolish things, then who knows what might happen, right? So anyway, that's the running joke. But many of you have been keeping up with Dan's health issues as of late, and he is getting some medical treatment right now, and that's where Kara is. She went to go help out Dan and Daphne while Dan's going through that, and just everyone, if you are the sort that prays, I am. Please pray for a speedy recovery for the inimitable Mr. Armour. I don't want to have to travel with a cardboard cutout. I want my buddy there. So do what you got to do, folks. All right. Let's get down to brass tacks. I tell you what, before I tear off into this, let me check to see if we've got any questions rolling here. All right. All right. Yeah, I'll get to that one here in a minute. By the way, I probably should do this too. See, this is what happens when I have to run production on my own. If you have questions, you can drop them in chat on YouTube or Facebook, or you can drop them right there. See where it says email your questions to coffeetalk@thetnm.org. You can also email them. Okay. All right, let's get down to it. Let's talk about where the bill is. And, we talked a little bit about it last week, but I wanted to get down into some real nitty gritty tonight. I promise I will not consume the entire time we're together with discussing this, but we have to have the conversation. Okay. So many of you, if you are not aware, you can go look at the news on the website, watch Coffee Talk from last week. But House Bill 3596, the Texas Independence Referendum Act. I'm going to call it the TEXIT bill for the remainder of our live stream tonight. The TEXIT bill has been assigned to the State Affairs Committee. Now, that is the same point that we made it to last session. And as we know, Chris Patty, who was the chairman of the State Affairs Committee last session, would not schedule it for a hearing. However, there is a very, very, very good chance that the new chairman, Todd Hunter, will schedule it for a hearing. Okay, so what that means is that when the time comes and it gets scheduled for a hearing, we have to pour as many people into that hearing for public testimony as we possibly can, right? We have to have a big show of support. Now, here's some interesting things. So we know that we won't know until probably a few days before, right? And we've gotten some additional information. We had a team at the Capitol led by our executive director, Nate Smith, yesterday. Our field director was there, several other volunteers, and they had an opportunity to visit with one of Todd Hunter's staffers, and they essentially said, look, we're doing state affairs committee meetings on Wednesdays, right? So unless something weird changes, it'll be on a Wednesday. And normally they will give plenty of notice. It will either be that Monday before, right? So, 2-3 days before, or it'll probably be announced the Friday before the weekend, right? So, we've got a window of a couple of days to 4 days, right? That may be all the notice we get. But be that as it may, if this is important enough for people, they will show, right? This is the kind of time when you separate the real from the mouthy ones, right? The ones that are like, oh, I don't know, it's I really support it, but it's so difficult. This is where you separate the go-getters from the BSers, right? I'm having a self-censor here, but you understand what I mean, right? This is the thing, and I understand some people have some circumstances where they can't, get away, do whatever, they're aged or infirm, or there's certain things they can't do. But let me tell you something. If you want it bad enough, there is a way, right? If I literally told you we're going to pick one random person to testify, and we got a sweepstakes of $1 million, and you got a chance, I bet that would knock some people off the bubble. I bet you could move heaven and earth to get there, right? Well, I can't offer you a sweepstakes of $1 million, but what I can offer you is an opportunity to have your voice heard in making Texas a self-governing independent nation. And that's worth way more than $1 million. Okay. So that being said, we don't know when. Not saying it's going to be this next week. Not going to say it's the following week. It needs to get moving, but it could be coming up pretty soon. So, you got to be ready. And so what we're encouraging people to do is, we suspect that we're going to get a hearing on the bill. I would really hope so. Okay. But when that happens, as many of you as possible need to be ready. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, I'll get to that part here in a minute. But so what I wanted to do was cover just really kind of not super deep, but just some kind of general guidelines or best practices for preparing your testimony. Okay. So let me get right down here to it. Okay. So, here's the testimony in state affairs is generally going to be about 3 minutes, right? Some committees will limit testimony down to 2 minutes, and they can limit testimony on a particular bill in any committee down to 2 minutes. That is sort of the chairman's discretion to do that. And if they've got a bill that's got a lot of folks, they may choke it down, but I don't know. So when you're preparing your testimony, when you're thinking about what you're going to say, do not go in there ad hoc. I mean, you guys know that I'm famous for rolling up. I don't do notes. I don't do bullet points. I used to, and I sure don't do scripts. Okay. But every time I've testified in front of a committee in the legislature, I bring remarks. I think about it ahead of time. I prepare them. And sometimes, depending on if I am feeling it or not, I may write them in the back of the room, right? But that's not what I'm saying everyone needs to do. You need to prepare yourself ahead of time. And when you do that, think about it being 3 minutes maximum. You've got 3 minutes to say something that they haven't heard before, or strongly reinforce a particular point that's coming across from everyone else, and to really make it known. You got 3 minutes to persuade, right? So bear that in mind. You have to be super efficient with what you're going to say and very thoughtful. So when you're preparing your testimony, you're going to want to start with your first and last name. Now, they will call your first and last name, and they will say what, because you have to register ahead of time. That's a whole other story we'll get to. But you basically want to introduce yourself. You're going to use that very first part of your testimony to personalize what you're going to say. You're not reading some random script, some pre-prepared thing, right? You may have gotten your notes from somewhere. You may be moving around talking points, but you are building a relationship in 3 minutes, right? It is the worst speed dating ever. Okay. So you got to start with, even if they call your name, you start with your name. My name is boom, and what city you live in, right? So you want to give it you want to pin it geographically. And that way, when there's a lot of people testifying, it prevents them from pigeonholing this as a rural issue or an urban issue or a West Texas issue or an East Texas issue or a South Texas issue. It shows that it has broad geographic support. And specifically, if any of those committee members happens to cover the city you live in, they will take note. Suddenly, snap, you've built a bit of rapport. But the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to establish your personal identity, right? So, we're not talking about playing identity politics, but if you're a veteran, a business owner, a teacher, a homemaker, a father, a mother, a husband, a wife, a former legislator, former official, whatever it is that helps them understand who you are. And I understand that, throwing those labels out there, that doesn't necessarily do it. It won't be the sum total of it, but it will help. Okay. And it helps them understand your perspective on the issue. Also, much like the city issue that I mentioned a moment ago, the other thing that it does is, by showing that personal identity, it allows you to essentially be a part of this tapestry of TEXIT support that we have that's all over the state. So that it's not just, okay, well, this is, somebody who is just a business owner, or, it's just a business owner coalition, or it's just, people that are disgruntled. It allows them to see, yet again, how broad and deep the support for this is, right? And again, many of those people that may be on that committee, they can identify. Maybe they are married to a teacher or a retired teacher, or outside of their legislative position, they own a business. Maybe some of those on the committee are veterans. You could go on and on. But what you're doing is again, you're building rapport. You're helping them understand more about your perspective. Well, next, you're going to want to state your position on House Bill 3596, right? They're going to ask you right at the very beginning. They're going to ask you, you registered support for the bill. You registered yes on the bill. You registered no on the bill, right? But you want to, after you handle the introductions and who you are and everything else, remember, keep it brief. You want to say, and I am here in support of House Bill 3596, the Texas Independence Referendum Act. You don't even have to put that last part, but you want to make it abundantly clear that once they have identified who you are, where you stand on this issue. Okay. So when you get ready, right? You want, now you've stated your position, where you are on the issue. We know who you are, and we know where you stand, why you we know that you support it, but now we need to know why you want to. Oh, and it says 1359. See, that is, you know what that is? That, my friends, is being drummed into for a very long time, because 1359 was the bill from last session. So disregard that. But you understand. You want to share at least one reason why you want 3596 passed. Why do you want the Texas Independence Referendum Act passed? You know, what is the one thing, if you had to distill it down, what is the one thing? Now, you don't have to just say one little bullet point and be done with it, right? You can expound on it, but you want to be able to articulate your rationale, at least one thing, right? If you're all over the place, right, and you're talking about, the election, and then you're talking about the border, and you're talking about that, you can run down your list of grievances, and that's fine. I mean, if that's what you want to do, but understand, you want to find that one compelling reason. And maybe you can distill it down to one compelling reason why you want this bill passed that encompasses all of those things, but make it one thing, right? Now it says share at least one reason. Don't share 20 reasons. You don't have time for it. Trust me, those 3 minutes burn fast, really, really, really fast. So if nothing else, share one good why and share it well, right? Pick one thing and just share it really, really, really well. Make it really well thought out. Drill down into it if you need to. Always being conscious of the time. So the other thing you want to include in this is when the TEXIT vote goes on the ballot, what does the act of being able to vote on an independent Texas mean to you? So, you've got one reason why you want it passed, but what is it, right? What would being able to do that mean to you? Right? So, maybe you have a reason why you want it passed, but what ultimately does it mean if you get a chance to vote on it? And this is going to cause you to have to think about, you know, experience, your vision. You have to create a vision now, and imagine for a moment what it's going to feel like when you were able to go to a voting booth and vote on the question, should the state of Texas reassert its status as an independent nation? You got, you're going to have to sort of think about that and think about what that means to you. Answer the question: how does it impact your life? What sort of emotions does it stir inside of you? And look, I can, I'm as guilty of this as anyone, of being very analytical about these sorts of things, right? About, just sort of the nuts and bolts of it. But you have to connect with these people on an emotional level. And I know that's going to be hard for some of us, but you have to remember that it's not just about what it does for your life, right? But it's about those emotions that it stirs up inside of you, because frankly, they may not connect with a single thing you say, right? Those committee members may not connect with anything that you have said. Your geographic location, your vocation, your reasoning for why you want it passed, what it means to you. They just knew you. They just got to know you today, so they really probably, some of them may not even care about you and what it means to you. They don't care about how that. Some of them may not care how it impacts your life, but you may be able to connect with them on an emotional level. If they can see what this means to you and feel what this means to you, then all of that other stuff may not matter. Okay. So bear that in mind. All right. And so when you close, for at the very end of it, you have to remember what your call to action is. We talk about this all the time: call to action, call to action, call to action. You have to remember what you're asking them to do. Don't just kind of tell them how you feel about it and then just get up and walk away. End it with, please vote yes on House Bill 3596. Tell them what you're wanting them to do. And I know it seems like they should understand that, but it is a good structure. You've told them who you are. You've told them where you're from. You've told them your identity, who you are, how you operate in society. You told them why you're in support of the bill. You told them why you're in support of the bill. You told them how it's going to make you feel to be able to vote for it, how it's going to impact your life. And now you ask them, you tell them, please vote yes on House Bill 3596. Let's get this thing to the floor and let's get it passed. Okay. All right. So once you have got all that, what I'm going to tell you, if you did not come across the very beginning, let me just reiterate, you need to write this down and you need to print it out, right? If you want to longhand write it, that's fine. I got legal pads for my birthday one year because I asked for them, right? I longhand a lot of things. Okay. But if write it out, type it out, whatever it is, and print it out. And then read through it a few times, not just silently in your head, but read it out loud and time yourself while you're reading it. See if it's in that 3 minutes. You don't want to sound like the guy that used to do the FedEx commercials. You don't want to have to speed read out loud to try to get it in, right? So if you're running long, don't hesitate to cut. If you're running short is okay. But if you've got something useful to say in that additional time, don't hesitate to add it, right? That 2 to 3 minutes is where you want to aim for. And then more importantly, go read it to someone else. Like if you're nervous about your ability to get up there and I mean, you're not giving a speech in front of a, I mean, you're not like you're standing on a stage looking at 1,000 people, right? But some people can go up to that podium or sit at that table and they freak out. They get intimidated. I've heard more than one quivery voice up there. And look, that was literally the first speech I ever gave. I shook so bad I almost fell down, right? And there were literally, I was speaking to a room of like 6 people, okay? I was in high school, and that's a story for another day. But the point here is go ahead and kind of blow the pipes out, right? Read it to someone else, read it to some friends, read it to some family members, some coworkers. Say, look, I'm going to testify in front of a committee in the Texas legislature, and I've got my testimony ready. Would you mind taking a listen to this? And then read it out, right? Call them up on the phone, get on Zoom or Skype, get on the phone, FaceTime, do whatever, but read it out to someone else and maybe read it out to a few people, right? And get some feedback. That feedback will be invaluable to you. Okay. So it's these guidelines are really about just preparation. Now we're going to be doing some things to get everyone else ready. Right. So I'll be talking about that here in just a moment, but we're going to be having some special webinars, some special calls, kind of get everybody ready to rock and roll. But understand at any moment, the balloon could go up. Right? That starter pistol could be fired and it'd be like, guys, guess what? We need to be at the Capitol next Wednesday. I mean, that could happen. And so we all need to be really, really, really prepared. And that starts with getting your testimony written. Now, ultimately, you may decide, I'm going to write it. I'm going to get to the Capitol and I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to go to the kiosk and register in support of. And you have that opportunity, right? Still show up. But you have an opportunity, and we'll talk more about written testimony and things of that nature. I'm going to recommend for any of you that are contemplating registering, testifying, to go to the TNM website. When you're logged in, you'll have a link that says Academy in the menu, and there is a course in there called the Legislative Action Workshop. One of the lessons in the Legislative Action Workshop is called Learn to Testify. As a matter of fact, I do believe that one is on our YouTube channel. So you don't even have to go there. You just go watch it, and it explains to you kind of everything. It's about an hour and a half long. Okay, so it's a long one. But not only does it cover the testimony itself, but the things ahead of time and the things after. It talks about written testimony, and we'll be talking about all that. We'll be getting all of you on a call together, and we'll be talking about that to help you get prepared. But I would suggest going to watch it. Now, that being said, let's go over a couple things. Number one, we launched this today. If you are planning on testifying for TEXIT, we need you. Okay. I was pretty clear about this last week, is that we need as many people as possible. And there is a rationale behind that, right? We can talk about, strategic testimony, things of that nature, but we need as many of you there as possible, right? We need to be able to communicate with you when the hearing happens and give you action items and things to do, where we're going to meet, keep you informed, the trainings, et cetera, et cetera. But we need as many people as possible. Okay. So I'm going to throw this out there. By the way, there's the link, tnm.me/testify. That's tnm.me/testify. Okay. So here's the thing. So last session, we didn't get a hearing. And when it was becoming very clear that we were not going to get a hearing, we launched our own virtual video testimony. Now, it wasn't, the committee wasn't hearing it, but we launched it because we wanted to kind of rub it in their face and say, look, these are the people that you wouldn't give a voice to. And so we will, because that's our role in this, right? It's what we do. And so over a period of about 6 days, we collected testimony, video testimony, in the form of committee testimony, right? Your name, bill, all that stuff I went through, 3 minutes. And we collected enough testimony that back to back, it ran for 24 hours. Okay. That's a lot. Well, I want to top it, but I want to top it in person because it makes a difference. And if you don't think it does, look at this. So many of you know that today is the hearing in the Senate where they're talking about school vouchers. Okay. Now, that is a hot button issue. And where it stands right now, they had, for that hearing today, it says, and this is from Scott Braddock, who is no fan of ours, but whatever. There are nearly 400 people signed up to testify on school vouchers and the related issues. Okay. Nearly 400. Okay. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. For us, 24 hours of testimony was about what does that work out to be? About 440, 480, something like that. I forget what the number was, but it's a chunk. That's 20 an hour times 24 hours. So whatever that works out to be. Don't make me break out a calculator. I'm tired and woefully undercaffeinated. But needless to say, whatever that number is, that's both pro and con those bills. We had that many, granted it was virtual, just calling for the vote. And I want to top that this time. I want this to be, and you do too, the most testified piece of legislation in legislative history. I want it to blow out the records. I want it to, I want people to understand how many of you want to vote on this issue. And the only way that happens is if you show up. Now, since we put that out there today, where we're asking people to commit to testify, if you will recall, those of you who took the Capital Action Survey at the beginning of the session, there were, I think, 272 or 271 of you that committed then. And since then, I do believe that since we launched this other one today, I do believe that we have had probably another 150 to 200 people that are committing to go, no matter when the balloon goes up. So we need all of you. We need you to commit. We need you to get ready because the Texiteers have to go in there and make our voice heard. Remember, you're not just representing yourself. You will be representing yourself because you have to sign that, but you are also going to be able to, you're going to be representing, and you will be a voice for other Texans out there, hundreds of thousands, millions, that don't get to go to Austin, don't get to testify, still want to vote on this. So you were going to be the champions to do this. So look, as I said last week, you guys have been clamoring for a rally, and as we have seen with Greg Abbott's school choice rally that he did in the rain the other day, that's just not the thing that our side does. Our team doesn't do that. Our people are not rally goers, but this is your opportunity to turn up to the Capitol, right? To take that time off work, to make that drive, to do whatever it is, to do something real and concrete that will make a real difference. Not holding a sign up on the south steps of the Capitol or yelling at an empty building on a Saturday, but showing up and speaking up and representing this cause that I believe that you love dearly. This is your shot. This is your shot. So, 400 people, I want to see these guys in a full meltdown when 1,000 of you roll in there and register to testify. Now, ultimately, will everyone stay throughout the end of it? Probably not. But I'll tell you what, I'll bring a snack back. I know where the bathrooms are. If I got to ride it out for 48 hours, I'm there. I'm ready to create the longest committee hearing in the history of the Texas legislature because I want to win. I want Texas to become a free, independent, self-governing nation. And I know that to do that, we have to get the vote. And so, therefore, I'm ready to do whatever I got to do here to get this vote. And this committee hearing is one step in the right direction and packing it out. So, friends, are you with me? Are we going to do this? Are we going to roll in there and make history again? Are we going to make history again? Because, so many of the things that we have done have made history. I mean, they have been historic. They've been record-setting. So are you ready to do it again? Because I know I am. Okay. So that said, let me get down to it. See, man, I'm rocking and rolling over here. Okay, yeah. Let me get to the questions. You guys are not asking a ton of questions, and because you're not asking questions, yeah. Oh, okay. There's one. All right. Here's a good question. Cheryl said, "Is there an age limit on who can testify?" No, there is no age limit. And to that point, let me just share this with you, because what I did was I pulled some of the testimony, the video testimony that was submitted last time during our virtual hearing, and I'm going to show you guys this one. I played it before. Yona's going to be upset with me, but here was one of the video testimonies that was structured perfectly.
Hello, members of the elected. My name is Yona Ramos, and I live in Austin. I'm almost 15 years old, an Orthodox Jew, and my family has been in Texas since before 1836. I speak to you today on urgent matters. We are...
Oh, it froze. That's not very nice. See if we can do it again.
Hello, members of the elected. My name is Yona Ramos, and I live in Austin. I'm almost 15 years old, an Orthodox Jew, and my family has been in Texas since before 1836. I speak to you today on urgent matters. We are at a crossroads in history which will decide my future. Your actions will have irreversible effects on how my life will be. Because of this, I feel obligated to remind you of something. The Texan identity is built on independence. Settlers came here in the first place because they had nothing left for them from whence they came. The people who came here were outcasts, dreamers who had been forgotten, the type who would strive for a better life, not put up with a bad one. So in search of that better life, they came here. They came independent of their past and independent of their future. They wanted to decide their own destiny. So when the land they came to was occupied by a tyrant who threatened their entire way of life, they did not stand back and watch. No, instead they took up arms in pursuit of their freedom and independence. Even though they knew they likely wouldn't win, they went to battle anyway. Because even the slightest chance that they could win, control their own destiny, chart their own path forward, was enough to motivate their resolve. And today we are once again faced with the same crisis of freedom. Our allegiance to the Union was gained from a promise that such a union would protect our way of life, our rights, and most importantly, our liberty. But now that liberty is being threatened by the very thing that promised to protect it. The union of our state to those other dysfunctional states is only detrimental to us now. I wish that the union has stayed as it was, a good and prosperous one, but we must recognize that it has been tainted. These United States are no longer the same that we once held dear. Now they are merely the empty shell of what was once a free nation. Thanks to the efforts of their corrupt establishment elite, the Union is now controlled by an authoritarian aristocracy, an aristocracy that was put into power against the will of the people on a foundation of lies, evil, and corruption. And now, through means of executive order, manipulated private action, and unconstitutional law, that aristocracy intends to destroy our freedoms. But by merit of being Texans, we, and by your duty you, will not put up with it. I know we love our country, and it holds truths to be self-evident and pure, but it no longer holds those values with us. At this point in time, Texas is a bulwark against complete destruction of self-governance, freedom, and liberty. So I call upon you, the members of the chosen government whose duty is to represent us. Do not stand back and wait knowing you could have done the right thing at this moment. You must take action for our freedom, your freedom, the freedom to be liberal or conservative, the freedom to even think as you please and do accordingly, is being threatened by a select few 1,523 miles away. Do what is right, that which you know you must. The eyes of freedom are upon you.
Yeah, interesting. Wow. All right. So do you guys want one more? I'll give you one more, and then I'll get to some questions, and then we'll talk Texas Supreme Court, okay? You guys, one more? I'm watching chat. You better tell me now before I move on. It's about to happen. And okay. All right, one more. I'm gonna give you one more. And you wanna see a testimony that hits at the personal story and the emotional resolve behind wanting TEXIT to happen. This is the one that takes the cake.
My name is Dan Govach. I'm a native Texan, 58 years. I'm a professional musician and a teacher. And January 31st of 2015, my then 25-year-old son, Spencer Govach, had his brains blown out by a 4-time deported illegal alien that had a nasty 15-year rap sheet and had done 5 years in prison for attempted murder. This was just a random act at a red light. He went on to take out 2 more Americans that night before he was stopped. Since then, I've been active in politics, and I've been to D.C., I've met with the president, and I've come to the conclusion that really there is absolutely no hope whatsoever of the cesspool of bribery, blackmail, and direct intimidation in D.C. To ever fix this problem and protect our citizens here in Texas. And I am firmly of the opinion that the only way that we're going to ever be able to not only protect our safety, but to protect our inalienable rights and freedom and liberty is by becoming an independent state and doing the job that the federal government won't do ourselves. That's the only way it's going to happen. And for this reason, I'm voicing my support for HB 1359. And I urge other Texans that want to maintain our way of life and live freely and not have to worry about their children getting their brains blown out at a street corner less than a mile from their home. I urge them to consider this and to contact their state rep and let them know that you support, again, HB 1359. Texans are the only real protection for Texans. It's not going to come from Washington, D.C., sadly to say, but that's just where it is, and I am a staunch supporter of Texas independence, and I think the time is now to move. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, so, powerful, and it's an example of, really making that connection, helping them understand why it's important to you, and why it was important to Dan Govach. It was failed federal policies, but for our relationship with the union, his son would be alive today, and he acknowledges that, and it's one of the reasons that he wants to vote on independence, to make sure that no other parent has to go through what he and his wife had to go through. So let me get to some of these questions, guys. I appreciate your patience. Russell says, who are the legislators holding up the progress? It's not being held up. The process is moving. But if you want to talk about legislators holding up the progress, number one, we need legislators to go down and sign on to the bill in the House as co-authors. And we still need someone to agree to sponsor it in the Senate. We're having those conversations, with as many of these people as possible, but they need to keep hearing from you. Your rep and your senator need to hear from you. And I'm not saying call every day, right? But what I am saying is they need to hear from you, and you need to strike up that relationship with them and their staffers and be like, look, this is an important issue to me. What is it going to take to get you, my state rep, to sign on to this bill as a co-author, and you as my state senator to agree to sponsor it in the Senate? So the process, nothing's holding up the progress right now. It's moving along. All we're waiting for is for a hearing to be scheduled, right? And we're still a bit early on that. I'd like to get it done sooner rather than later, but those conversations are already happening. So, but thanks for that question. Mike asks, is news media allowed in the chamber, and how do we manage to show the level of support that the TEXIT bill receives? And thank you for your super chat, sir. The question is news media allowed in the chamber? Okay, so if you're talking about the floor of the House or the floor of the Senate, media have to be credentialed to get floor access, and that's they each have their own process. But if you're talking about in the committee room, sure, news media roams the halls there all day, every day during session, so that's not a problem. And then the other question is, how do we manage to show the level of support that the TEXIT bill receives? I don't understand that question, so I don't know how to answer it. But if you're talking about how we handle showing them support, the committee members or whoever else, we've made all kinds of ways to do that, right? It's one of the reasons we're trying to pile as many people into that hearing as possible. One of the reasons we maintain the supporter count on the front page of the website. One of the reasons now that the local groups, the local coordinators and volunteers in the local groups are collecting signatures on letters to these state reps and state senators. It's one of the reasons we tell everybody, make your phone calls. It all matters. Poll numbers are one thing, numbers on a website are another, but when there is a flesh and blood TEXIT supporter that's saying, look, I want to vote on this. And I'm going to tell you, there are some people out there, some legislators saying, I'm not hearing this in my district. I'm just saying, you got to make the calls. You got to make the visits. Thomas says, could we set up a text notification of this and any other important testimony dates? Look, the best thing you can do to be notified about this and any of that is, if you have not registered support on the TNM website, do so. But I'm gonna suggest to you right now that if you have not done it yet, oh man, hang on, I got this. That's what happens when I have to run my own production. There we go. You need to go to tnm.me/testify and be like, look, I want to testify. Right now, we don't keep these things secret. As soon as we find out it's going to happen, we're going to let everybody know, right? But if you are going to commit to testify, we're asking you to go to that link and to fill out the form, so that we can send out all the stuff in between, to get everyone ready to coordinate that effort. So not just the discussion out there, kind of in a general sense, what everybody else is going to get, but we have to organize and coordinate those people that are going to be at the Capitol that day and do everything we can to resource them. All right, let's get back to the questions. I told you I was going to take some questions. Thanks for that question, Thomas. Pam says, my representatives are neutral on TEXIT. How can I change them? Okay, so if you're talking about on the legislator page on the TNM website, when a representative or a senator is listed as neutral, essentially that means that they have not indicated one way or the other whether they're in support. Now, we're taking notes on those sorts of things, and when we indicate, when we find out one way or the other, they're a hard no, a lean yes, lean no, or they're on board, we will change their status on the website. But one of the things that affects that as well is when you have interactions with your legislators, you have to go to their profile on the TNM website and let us know what that interaction was. So many of you are already doing that, and thank you for that. But what that does is you can actually go on the profile and look at the other interactions that people have had. So, we encountered this last session when we had this whole directory up, where a legislator would say one thing to one person and say a completely opposite thing to someone else. And it became useful with these legislators when we were able to go to them and say, okay, look, you told your constituent this, you told your other constituent something completely different. We're here to get the real story. Which one is it? Which one of these people are we going to have to go back and disappoint? Right. So that's, you just, but if you're talking about how can you change them, you got to, get the legislative pack, right? That's that link is out there. Download the legislative pack. If you don't know where that is, we'll get a link dropped out there to you. Connect with them. I mean, you've got to communicate. You've got to build those relationships. You've got to do it in a right way. There is a video on our YouTube channel, and it's also part of that legislative action workshop that talks about how to deal with your legislators, right? The best approach, right? Because we could go in there and, you could slam and jam and, if you don't do this or whatever, but that may not be the best way. That may not be the best approach to take with them. They may be just in the dark about this. They may not really understand it. And all they need is someone to help them make sense of it. We've gotten feedback from the legislative team that as they've talked to some of these legislators, they had completely different idea about what the bill was than what it actually does. And they had a completely different idea about who we were as an organization than the reality of it, So you got to educate their staff, educate the legislators, let them know that this is not some knee-jerk reaction, but that there is a body of Texans out here who simply want to vote on this issue. All right. Thank you for that question, Pam. Okay. Pamela says, are people limited to 3 minutes? Yes. You want to shoot for 2 to 3 minutes for your testimony. If you go over the 3 minutes, they have a little beep thing, and then they'll tell you shut up. And then if you don't shut up, then they'll get out the shepherd's hook. That would be fun. I mean, I wonder if they do. I wonder what would happen. Like if you went beyond the 3 minutes and you just kept going, what would they do? They probably call the DPS in there to pull you out. Wow. Lynn asks, are the testimonies recorded? Yeah. I mean, if you go, when you go there, and if you guys haven't been on the legislature website, they live stream all the committee hearings, all the floor proceedings. All of those are recorded. They're live streamed and recorded and archived. So, sometimes when we've had a busy day during session here and I haven't had a chance to live stream it, I'll go pull up one of the committee recordings and watch the playback, so I'm not missing things, or watch floor proceedings. So yeah, you can get that, and you get that over on both. If you go to the website for the Texas House of Representatives or the Texas Senate, they have They have a video links on both of their sites, and it'll take you there to both live stream if anything's live streaming, and it'll take you to the archives. Thank you for that, Lynn. All right. John wants to know, what is proper attire to testify? Business casual, jacket and tie. I will tell you my rule of thumb, right? When dealing with legislators, when I go talk to the legislators, I'm there to take care of business. So I'm dressing like I'm there to take care of business. You know, you want to dress professionally. Business casual works. I would not recommend flip-flops and shorts and t-shirts and, all that other kind of stuff. I get it. We're Texans. We kind of dig things casual, but you're going to the capital of our nation. You're not going to Margaritaville, right? So you need to dress like you're ready to do business. So I would suggest at a minimum, khakis, slacks for men, clean shoes and a button-down shirt. You could get by with a polo, but if you can rock a dress shirt and a jacket, at least do that. If you can tie up, do that. You are there to take care of business, and the one thing you want to present yourself is credible. And of course, I'm coming at it from a men's perspective. I don't know that I'm here to speak on women's fashion. I don't know. But I think you get the point, right? It's about presenting a professional image. I can tell you that I have been, and I told the folks this, maybe I said it on Coffee Talk last week, or maybe it was one of the leadership calls, but I can remember going and testifying on a piece of legislation, and having to walk by somebody who had obviously not seen a shower in some time, who had about a 6-foot ring of body odor around them. And it wasn't that they were homeless. That was a choice they made. Right. And they went to go testify, and I was mortified that they were testifying on the same side of the equation as us, because I could look and tell immediately the guy lost them. And I get it. We should not have to worry about that sort of thing, right? It should just be the purity of the idea. But you and I both know that that's not the way the world works. And let's try to be real. Okay. So I would suggest, business casual. I mean, just, use your best judgment. Thanks for that, John. Okay, I covered this a while ago, but I'll say it again. Man, that's a long one. It's like I'm like Kilroy. Look at that. That is total Kilroy right there. Okay, last session. Let me see if I can look over this thing. Last session, the bill did not receive a hearing. Correct. What is the likelihood of 3596 receiving a hearing? Very high. I have contacted several legislators and received the standard canned reply from each. I get it. The one thing that is very difficult for them to do a form letter or canned reply is a phone call or a personal visit. If they have a district office and it's open during session, go. If not, and you have an opportunity to go to Austin between now and then, go do that, right? Or make a phone call. I read a legislative interaction today that came in from someone who essentially got their legislators' staff, their state reps' staff to coordinate a Zoom call with the legislator. I mean, that was great. They had, I think it said 20 minutes or whatever. So fun stuff. All right. All right. Steven says, what is the likelihood anyone who would go would actually get to testify? When they open it up for public testimony and you register to testify, you get to testify, right? That's just when they open it up for public testimony, they're there until it gets done. And what you will typically see is when these things kind of run long, when you got a lot of people will sign up, and then they'll get bored, and then they'll go to the house and they'll be like, okay, we called so-and-so for their testimony. They are not here, but we're registering them yes on the bill or no on the bill. So I'm going to go and I'm going to register. And if I'm the last guy, if I'm the tail end of the whip, it does not bother me at all. I will be there. Like I said, I know where the coffee is, and I know where the bathrooms are, and I'll bring my own snacks. Okay. Wow, I'm overtime. All right, man. I didn't even cover. All right. So I'm gonna go overtime, but I got to blast through this because this is big. Okay. So I mentioned the Supreme Court, Texas Supreme Court decision on the 17th. Here was the headline. Okay. So the San Antonio Express News on the 17th said the state's highest court on Friday sided with local police reform advocates, allowing a municipal proposition that would decriminalize abortion and marijuana to remain on San Antonio's May 6th city election ballot. Texas Alliance for Life, an Austin-based anti-abortion group, had asked the court to reject the proposition, a proposed city charter amendment, on the grounds that its scope was too broad. The organization also accused the city council of failing to call for the election in time. Okay. Now, you're probably saying, what in the world does this have to do with us in Texas, right? And, you know, we're just going to take the procedural part, right? I understand we got a city that's kind of doing whatever it's doing, right? Okay, not the point here. You can have a conversation about that, but let me just get down to the brass tacks, okay? So I pulled the Supreme Court decision. There it is, 230111, and Justice Bland delivered the opinion. So Justice Bland wrote the opinion. It was the majority, okay? Now, fun thing. So you go pull it. There it is. Go pull it. Fine. But here's the takeaway, right? Adhering to our long-standing commitment to avoid undue interference with elections, we deny relief. Sufficient post-election remedies exist that permit the voter to challenge any infirmity in the proposed amendment and its placement on the ballot after the voters have had their say. So essentially, what the Texas Supreme Court said in that ruling is that they won't stop a vote. Now, you know, you've heard people talk about, well, we're going to challenge this TEXIT vote. It's unconstitutional, blah, blah, blah. Well, wait a minute. You just literally had the Texas Supreme Court say, look, if it's enabled by statute, if it's enabled by ordinance, however it works, city charter, no matter where it's at, we're going to let it happen, because if there's a problem with it afterwards, well, we'll just address the problem afterwards. But we're going to fall on the side of letting the people vote. So what does that do? Well, it takes something off the table that the opposition have said quite a lot, which is, well, the Texas Constitution doesn't allow for that sort of thing. Well, we know that it does, right? Because the legislature can write laws and they can create a statute. They can put something on a ballot. They can put it on a ballot, let the people of Texas vote on it. Supreme Court here in Texas is not going to do anything about it. They've got, now they've already said, this is where we're at. This is where we're at on the issue. So it has extremely interesting implications for, you know, it's a TEXIT win. It's a loss for the opposition. That means that, let's say we get the bill passed and the vote goes down, and they get the vote scheduled for the general election ballot. And one of these yahoos comes in there and goes, we can't have that vote. It's treason. It's sedition. It's all this nonsense. And they want to take it to court, right? Because they wouldn't take it to federal court. It'd go to state court. Well, guess what? The Texas Supreme Court essentially said, we're going to fall on the side of letting the people vote. And if you want to bring a suit afterwards based off of whatever random weirdness that you come up with, knock yourself out. But we want the people to have their say. So initially, first read, it's probably not a great article for some of you. But for those of you that believe that we have an inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish our government in such manner as we may think expedient, and at a minimum should be able to vote on this issue, congratulations, the Texas Supreme Court agrees with you. So good news. Okay, folks, it is time for me to wrap this bad boy up. I'm going to remind you one more time. Head over to tnm.me/testify, tnm.me/testify. Register to testify when the TEXIT bill gets scheduled for a hearing. Oh, yeah, and, I didn't get to cover the how you guys are shifting the window, but I do have video footage that I could play. It's Yeah, you guys are that's what, when I look out there and see how you guys are just taking down the opposition with some phenomenal, I mean, you're just destroying every stupid argument. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. All right. So you know that tnm.me/testify. If you have not already pledged your support, head over to tnm.me/vote. That is tnm.me/vote. And by the way, while you're at it, become a volunteer. Head to tnm.me/volunteer. Get in the game. Let's go win this thing, guys. All right. Oh, and there's that link. If you need to download the bill, if you need to know who your legislators are, if you need to download sample letters, any of those things, head over to tnm.me/legislature and take action for TEXIT today. Okay, my friends. Well, guess what? It is that time where we have to part the ways. More talk than coffee tonight. But anyway, it was a good time with you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your week and your evening to spend it together. Hope you got something out of it tonight. I know I did. I got even more excited than I was before I got on here because I think you guys are going to step up in a big way. I think you're going to connect with your networks, people that you know that aren't watching Coffee Talk tonight. You're going to connect with them, and we're going to have a big showing at the Capitol when this thing gets scheduled for a hearing, and I'm for it. So, wonderful stuff. All right, that is a wrap, my friends. I'm going to leave you with the words that I leave you with every single solitary week. Anytime I speak to a crowd or speak to you, they're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now. And the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.
If you feel you've no real voice, and at the polls there's no good choice, and the best is a lesser evil, just who? And it is time for a real change. Instead of voting more of the same, only one solution restores the power of you. When Texan rights have been impaired, and it's gone on for many years, there's only one way left to correct it. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for TEXIT. July the 4th, we celebrate an exit of the United States from a British Empire that denied them representation. Yeah, and history repeats, they say. Britain's past became their fate when a Brexit vote restored Britain's status as a nation. When the Constitution is ignored, state sovereignty thrown overboard, and all attempts to restore it have been rejected. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. So high, no limits seem to apply. Is this the future we want for our Lone Star? What if tax dollars stayed in our state and Texans had the final say? Well, that's a future I'd be happy to vote for. You see corruption in D.C. or want a real tax decrease? There's only one solution left, you guessed it. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. Texas foreign policy? Are you tired of a government that acts so reckless? You know that Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. Do you love this Lone Star State? Have countless reasons why it's great. Perhaps you believe that God blessed it. You know that Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas. Go pledge your vote today for Texas. Sign up at Texas now.